Community. It is Matt Aitchison here. We got an awesome guest, as I'm sure many of you know and have met her before. We got Brandy Salazar on board with us today, and we're excited to jump into a topic that I think comes up quite frequently this time of year. And I was actually at an event this last weekend. I'm sure many of you know him. Mr. Hal Elrod did an event called the Best Year Ever Blueprint. And what a lot of us tend to do is we think, the holidays are coming around and it's time to enjoy. I've been so good this year. I'm going to enjoy the holidays, eat as much food and have as much drink and enjoy the company of what the holiday spirit entails. And then we get to January 1 and we're kind of scrambling to set up what our year looks like. So one thing that we're very intentional about in the One Life community and that we preach and practice within the community is obviously we all have that dream of what our next year, that best year ever, can look like, but how are we going to plan what that best year looks like? And that's kind of what the topic is going to be about today. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into today's topic. I just want to remind everybody, in order to start the year off with a bang, we're really going to be bringing some awesome guests here in the coming months for next year to make sure we're spicing up the content, and we definitely want your guys' feedback, so please leave some notes or comments on the side toolbar or in the community, and we want to bring whatever it is that you guys want to talk about to the One Life Google Hangouts, and we're actually considering turning this into a podcast, so would love your guys' feedback on that as well. But to start off the year, just so you guys know, we have our energetic, intelligent, and amazing friend Sujit, all the way from India, and he's going to be talking about simplifying life. And there are a lot of applications and tools and resources, and at the end of the day, I kind of like to talk about it being noise, right? We all have this ADD syndrome nowadays, and it's very easy to get distracted and pulled in so many different directions, and yet we don't really fulfill exactly what it is that we have set out to achieve at an extremely high level. So Sujit's going to be interviewing and sharing some amazing tips and tricks that he's used in order to create some awesome online communities, simplify his life, and really live at a level 10. And then just so you guys know, One Life tickets for our East Coast Conference in Philadelphia are on sale. So if you guys want to get on board for that, please sign up. We have some really cool speakers, and I think you guys have seen over the last few years how this community continues to grow. We continue to attract not only amazing members that care and want to share and really collaborate on sharing this message across the globe, we're also starting to attract some amazing speakers who want to provide great content, information, and resources to really further our message. So please join us in Philadelphia, and if you guys have any questions, let us know. We're happy to get you any insight that you might want further information on. But with further ado, Brandy Salazar is on board with us today. We're going to be talking about some goal planning and setting up your best year ever. Brandy, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. We had some time to really share some ideas and map out what we want to talk about today. And we were just in San Diego together. I know you were at the event. And this theme of really having your best year ever is something that I think a lot of people are very on board with and becoming more mindful and conscious about, and yet a lot of people don't know where to start. So give us a little bit of an idea of what are we going to be talking about today? What does that look like over the next 30 to 45 minutes?
So I'd like to start by saying I think a lot of us overcomplicate it. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the collaboration between you and I, Maddie, is that we've come up with a really simple way to map out our year and some easy tools to know if we're on track, know if we aren't, and a place to get back on track when we aren't. So the thing that we start with every year is our life areas. And if you have the PDFs, they're over to the right-hand side of of the Google Hangout. If you pull up page 1, what we have on here is what we're calling the legendary life areas. And these are the 8 areas that we pay attention to and we rate, evaluate, think about, mastermind about. And when we say the word legendary, that's not our definition of legendary for you. That's not Maddie's, it's not mine. It's your definition. It's your life. You define what level 10 is in every one of these areas. You define what legendary is. You just define what success is. However, so often, so many people don't even think about what it looks like to live level 10 or live legendary in these areas of their life. And what we'd like to do today is help you walk through an exercise that will bring awareness to every one of these areas and help you be more intentional and conscious of what you're doing in all of these areas and really put together a roadmap for 2016 and how you can live your best life with not just really rocking your health. I feel like that's one of the areas that we all pick, and I'm going to touch on that area because it is something that everyone can relate to. But, we all know someone who maybe has a lot of money but has poor health, or really has a huge focus on their fitness and health, but struggles with deepening their relationships. And one of the things we hear a lot about is balance. And if you don't have a conscious awareness to every one of these life areas, it's really hard to not gravitate towards either what you are good at, what you think you should be focusing on, or just what comes up on a day-to-day. So what we'd like to do is help you to cultivate a little bit more balance, and which we all know in order to have a legendary life or a successful life, having that balance and awareness on all of these areas is very important.
Well, I think one thing that you also mentioned, Brandy, we've talked about is when you look at people that are very successful in not only business or not only health or all these different categories that we've kind of gone through as being somewhat of like the 8 areas that if these were all balanced, how legendary and amazing would your life look like?
Absolutely.
All these people have a system, and they're very intentional about how they go through the process of defining what legendary or successful or level 10 looks like in each category. And it sounds like through really pre-setting up what these look like, we can be a lot more intentional about how we move forward throughout the year in order to make sure we're accomplishing those goals. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I give this example a lot because when I watched Chris Lochhead last year at the One Life conference, or 3 years ago, the first time that I attended the conference, and what he said about living a legendary life, it changed me, it hit me, and I will forever never be the same. But we all have this programming or common belief that we can't have it all, or those people have it all, and that's not reserved for me. But he stood up there and he said, "Who said you can't have it all? Who said?" And not only did no one say that, but that's why we're all here, is to have it all and live our best life. And it's so easy to get caught up in what comes at us instead of being very purposeful and intentional about what we want and what works for us. So yes, I absolutely agree with you.
Perfect. So now what I've got up here on the screen is kind of the next phase of this goal planning is really defining through a life audit really where you're at right now. And
absolutely, yeah.
Kind of talking about, okay, well, what's going well in my life? What are the things that I want to acknowledge and give credit to that are fueling and aligning with my goals and where I'm looking to go in my next year or my 5-year vision or whatever that may be. And then we talk a little bit more about things that I'm struggling with, maybe things I want to stop or things I might need more resources or information on in order to move through more intentionally. So tell us a little about how you kind of mind map out what this looks like and how people can, use this sheet to fill it out and get a little bit more clarity before they move on to the next step of the planning.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to start with something about this, things that work well. So often we start our new year or we plan for our new year, those of us that do it, and we get really hard on ourselves and we say, man, I really didn't do this and I really didn't do that. And the reality is if you shift your perspective just a little bit, there is something in every one of these life areas that you are doing right. There's something. And there are some areas it's going to take you a little bit longer to discover what that is. But there's something. And I really challenge you to pay attention to that and take the time that it takes to not only figure out what's working, but maybe to not only to celebrate it, but continue that behavior. And as you're starting to think about what you want, make sure that you keep doing and keep implementing the things that are working. So I guess what I'm saying is just what this exercise is a lot. It's bringing light to it. You want to bring light to the things that are working and bring light to the things that aren't working. So what I've done here on this first sheet is I printed out page 4 of the PDFs, and I decided to go with the health and fitness because it was something that we could all relate to. So the things that are working well for me this year were I was consistently juicing, I stayed active, I eat well, I got adequate sleep, and I did a really good job with my meal prepping. So the things that I'm struggling with, and what I would also add is in this struggle area, this is where you're going to start to feel the things that you're going to want to put on your roadmap, and it's the place where you start to kind of cultivate those goals. So for me, I'm not consistently taking my supplements. I gained 5 pounds through the holidays. Hope I'm not alone there. And I didn't do as much cardio as I wanted to this year, and I didn't drink as much water as I wanted to this year. So, Maddie, is there anything that you want to add on that one?
No, I think you just have to go into the mindset of, these are all things that you're planning. Goals are really, the more we achieve these goals, the more we're able to define and create what the happiness looks like in our life. And
Yeah,
the key to happiness really is not to change, our external reality. It's more about changing the internal reality in our mindset. So when you're doing these kind of things, I really want people to remain aware of what am I feeling when I'm writing this down, and is this in alignment with the goals that I want to be setting. So just acknowledging the emotional space around it, I think, is very important, and that's why we ask that you take some time to talk about the things that are working well and how does it make you feel, and the things that you might be struggling with and how does it make you feel. And you've already created a new level of awareness around this, and this will completely help gain clarity on whether you should be setting goals around certain things or if they don't matter. And that's really what this first page and exercise is to at least open up that mind for what kind of goals do I want to be setting, how do they make me feel, and should they even be on my plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Which takes us to the next page, which is the where do you want to be page. And what you want to do here is create a mind map. I've so often called it a brain dump, but we decided that's a kind of yucky word. So what you want to do here is just kind of get it all out. And it doesn't have to necessarily be on this sheet of paper. I use a big whiteboard and a ton of Post-its, and I like to get creative with it. And
You want to show them kind of what that looks like real quick?
yeah, I do. I have I'm in
Just
my office, so I have my board here.
get a little bit of a visual.
Yeah. So I put my categories on in each area, and I head them, and then I take one Post-it color for things. So I'll take my health again as an example. And like I had on there that I gain the 5 pounds, lose the 5 pounds, drink more water. But then I also have another color Post-it where, like Maddie had said, to start to think about how you feel and how you want to feel. So I take, mine's blue. My blue Post-its are how I want to feel. So with my health and self, I want to feel confident. I want to feel energized. So when you're mapping this out and you're putting all of this information on this sheet or a whiteboard or however you want to do it, think about not only the things that would make 2016 the best year ever, or you get to the end and it's New Year's Eve on 2016 and you're like, man, that's the most amazing year I've ever had. A lot of that is because of how you're feeling, and it's a feeling associated with what you've accomplished. So I'd like you to do both and put on there how you want to feel, and really think about it. And the thing that, I talked about this a little bit on the balance webinar that I did this year, and so often we think about what our friends think or what our parents think, and the reality is if you create goals that have somebody else in mind, on what their perspective is on you, or what you think they're going to think about you, you're never going to achieve true happiness or true joy. And it's a hard lesson to learn, and it's hard to do, and that's part of why when you do this exercise, being alone with a cup of tea or a glass of wine and sitting, not that I saying to be drinking.
I prefer wine and chocolate, but go ahead.
Is really be honest with yourself, and this is your life, and that's why I'm so passionate about One Life. Is this is your life fully lived. This is your legendary life, your success story, and it's all we have. So as you're putting this together, be really, really honest with yourself, and don't rush it. Take the time. And if it takes you a little bit into 2016 to put this together, then that's what happens. But it's more important for you to be honest than to rush through this and put down, that you need to go get a degree in something because that's what you think somebody else wants.
Well, I love what you said about the authenticity aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely important that, am I getting an echo here?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay. So I think it's extremely important that we are authentic with ourselves and we get intimate with ourselves on what it is that we truly want in order to design what that happy, fulfilled, one life fully lived looks like.
Absolutely.
And I think due to societal, pulls and forces, a lot of the times we end up writing down things or doing things that may not be in alignment with what we really want, what we're passionate, what really makes us happy. And that's one thing I'll be the first to raise my hand I've struggled with over the last few years, is feeling like I have to do certain things or write certain goals down or act or perform a certain way when it's really not me or really not what I want. And that's one thing that after doing some more research around goal setting is, some of the top 5 goal setting flops that really set you up for failure, I would say, would be you're setting goals to impress others, maybe some goals you feel were forced upon you, maybe by a boss or somebody else that doesn't, align with what you really want. Maybe you're trying to do too much too soon, where you're just setting these extremely lofty goals, these stretch goals, and you're not giving yourself the opportunity to actually hit and achieve them. And don't get me wrong, I think setting lofty goals and stretch goals are very, very important because they push us past what our brain tells us is logical. But at the same time, you also want to set goals that are setting you up for wins, right? We don't want to constantly set ourselves up for a loss. We want to win. And that's really, really important for the confidence factor of how we go about setting our goals and moving through them, because if they become so unachievable, then we don't actually take action towards them. And then we also see people self-sabotage themselves due to fear or failure or low self-esteem, or they just have a poor understanding of the goal-setting process. So I want everybody to, those are literally what I've seen compiled over many data studies, that those are the top 5 mistakes people make when they're doing goal setting. And so just keep that in mind when you're going through it, is just ask yourself some of the questions on, give some thought to what it is that you really want and why do you really want to achieve that. Maybe another question you might want to ask yourself is what does this really mean to me, and how much does it really mean to me? I mean, is it a level 10 of importance that I get this done this year? Or is it maybe a level 2 and I might be able to leave this off and replace it with something else that's more important?
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of the book Start With Why.
Absolutely. And then I go a little bit further and ask myself, after writing this down, is, well, what are the benefits of me achieving this goal? Does this me achieving this goal mean that I'm going to get to take my family on a vacation and be unplugged for a week and create and experience memories with them? That might be a very important goal. Or is make this amount of money so I can go out and buy a car. Well, that may, depending on who it is or what the context is of the situation, that may or may not be something that is extremely beneficial for you in your life if that equals happiness. But everybody has a different definition. So I think it's important to be asking yourself these questions through the process. Maybe who else does this goal impact or affect? Is it just for me? And sometimes you need those personal, selfish kind of goals that fuel and help you thrive. And at the same time, coming from a place of service or impact on others outside of yourself might be something that's really important to you. So just keeping those things in mind as you move through, where do you want to be? As you start with the end goal in mind, or you're throwing out some of these things on this mind map, there is no right or wrong answer yet, but think about those things and ask yourself those questions once you get through this page. And so when they get through this mind map, Brandy, what's the next step of really where they should be going towards actual goal setting?
Well, I'd like to touch on a couple of things that we just talked about. This whole part of really listening to yourself and turning off that programming of what other people think and what we want for ourselves is honestly one of the hardest things to achieve. It's a lifelong journey. It's for me, I consider it a spiritual practice. I'm not there, and the thing that as we continue on through this process and you continue on through your year, this roadmap can be changed. And as you say, maybe you have a goal that you get to March and you say, man, I've been working on this and I'm close and it's really not resonating with me anymore. Or maybe it's, man, I can't get into flow with this. I can't latch on to this goal and I don't know why. It may be that it's not your goal and it was someone else's goal that you just put on your map. So this check-in process, we don't have our whole annual process in this packet. It's too much for a 45-minute webinar, but this whole where are you now sheet, you can fall back on every week, every month, quarterly, definitely at least once a year. But as you're starting to feel maybe your health slip or your finances aren't going exactly as planned or a relationship you're struggling with, use this tool of what's working, what's not working, and check in with yourself as often as you need to, and revise your goals. So,
Yeah, that's really important, I think.
yeah, just know
Just
that
because
it's not the end all be all.
right.
If you're being intentional about where you are and where you're going and taking the steps to get there, you are farther ahead than most. So just be easy on yourself and know that this is a fluid, ever changing process and system.
Yeah, I think both of us would say that this plan continuously changes throughout the year, and
Absolutely.
nothing is set in stone. So as they get through kind of, okay, well, this is where I am now, this is where I want to be, now you can utilize both of those pages to move to the next step of the Legendary Life Planning, which is moving actually to laying out some goals on some of these sheets and setting a target date.
Yeah, measurable goals with a target date. Here's one other thing that I do want to add. Sorry, I keep doing this, but um, if you want your legendary life though, and you find yourself not committing and not following through with things, there could be another issue there, and maybe there's a commitment issue that you need to have a difficult conversation with yourself about, or it's really easy to fall into bad habits, and they get really comfortable, and it gets uncomfortable to get into some of these positive habits, and there's going to be a period of time where it's uncomfortable. Waking up early is uncomfortable when you haven't done it for a while, but Miracle Morning proves, that so many people's lives have been changed just by that one single step. And not eating that cheeseburger is not always the easiest choice, but sometimes you have to make those tough choices and be a little bit uncomfortable to be your best self.
I
So
think,
it's kind of a balance of both.
yeah, and you just mentioned a good point. If people are maybe potentially struggling with following through on their goals, it might be something to turn inward and do a little more
Yeah.
reflection on. But just know that you're not alone, because 25% of all New Year's goals are broken in the first 2 weeks. And it
Wow.
usually takes 5 or 6 unsuccessful attempts at goal setting to actually make them happen. And I'll say, but, I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, goal setting is something that I wasn't doing consistently throughout my life. I had maybe certain things in my mind that I knew I wanted to achieve, but I didn't really have some intentional plan behind what action items or steps do I need to take in order to make this happen. And I'm sure everybody's heard of this Harvard business study. I think I've talked about it before. Is 83% of the population does not have goals. 14% have a plan in mind, but they aren't written. And then you talk about there's 3% have actual goals written down, and the people with the 3% are 10 times more successful than all those people combined. And that's more of a financial measure. But there's a lot of different studies out there where only 3 out of every 100 adults actually write their goals down. So the fact that you guys are even starting to look at this and think of this as a tool for helping propel you to be more successful in what you do next year, you guys are already well ahead of 97% of the population. So woohoo, congratulations. But I think as you do or don't accomplish some of these goals, just grant yourself some grace to have some highs and lows in this process, and know that it's not going to define whether you're a successful or a legendary person. You're the one who defines that. It's really what the underlying message and theme is of all of this, which is to equal true happiness.
Absolutely. And your
So,
definition of it.
absolutely. So starting by creating some, just start mapping out some stuff on, faith and contribution and health and fitness and growth and self. And Brandy, do you have some examples of some of the things that maybe people can put in some of these categories that, might align for them that we can use in order to go to the next step of breaking it down further?
Um, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
So like
Which,
in health and fitness, what would people write down in the 1 to 8?
so in like oh, okay. So, um, how I had gone through my sheet and I had said, on things that I'm struggling with, not consistently taking my supplements, gaining those 5 pounds, I'm not doing as much cardio. What your goal is on this sheet is to now take it down to what you call a SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time sensitive.
Say that
Um,
one more time.
Specific,
Okay.
measurable, attainable, relevant, and time sensitive. So what you want to do here is set yourself SMART goals. And so on health and fitness, my first one I put on here was to lose that 5 pounds that I put on. So lose the 5 pounds by January 31st. Well, one of the ways from our good friend David Osborne that I set a lot of my goals is it's the amount of days that I want to do something in a year. So, for example, taking my supplements. The reality is I really don't like taking pills, and so if I say that I'm going to take my pills 365 days, I know that I'm going to fail at it. There's going to be a few nights where I'm going to give myself a night off. There's going to be a few nights where Lance and I decide to stay somewhere overnight, or I fall asleep in bed with the kids. So I put on here 300 days. So for me to get the cardio in that I want to, which also then falls into a spiritual bucket for me, doing yoga 150 times, drinking 60 ounces of water, again, like the supplements, 300 times. Now for a couple of other examples on like growth and self, I'd like to attend a Tony Robbins event this year. So attend Tony Robbins before the end of the year. Or I'm doing a yoga teacher training this year, so do that before May of this year. Fun and adventure. Take my kids to the bounce place 10 times this year, or however many you want to do, or like significant other and kids, doing a family trip by August, doing a trip alone with my husband by the end of the year, having 50 date nights with my husband, doing alone trips with each one of my kids by the end of the year. So you can do things before the end of the year, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to do one kid before March, and then I'm going to do the other kid before July, and then I'm going to go on a trip with my husband before. So sometimes when you look at it in an at a glance like this, you can say, and this is the sheet that I'm working on right now is sheet 18 of your PDFs. You start to kind of balance it out. And when you start to see that you've waited, say, the first 3 months of your year, start to balance it out a little bit. And it's part of why we put this target date on here. So the things that you put, 300 times on or 150 times, that's on average 3 times a week. But if it's something major, you're going to want to balance it out a little bit.
Okay. And then now I know this area is great for, you lay all these out, you get an idea of, okay, this is my goal, here's my target date. Now we move into the next step of really interrogating this goal on a really much deeper scale in order to understand more of an kind of action plan or context of what you need in order to make this goal come to life.
Absolutely. So this goal sheet, and this one's PDF 19, you're going to want to either print out a bunch of these or have it in Adobe where you can type in on a bunch of these. But most of your goals you're probably going to want to break down like this so that you can then map it into your monthly, weekly time blocking. So, and I'll go over that next if that doesn't make sense. So first you're going to do is you're going to put the goal on. So let's take that 5 pounds again. and my target date to lose that 5 pounds is January 31st. So what do I need to do that? What resources do I need to achieve this goal? I need an accountability partner. And Maddie, I think you and I should touch on that before this is over on the whole thing. I need an exercise plan, I need a meal plan, and a tracking system. So what are the steps that I need to do? I need to email a group of friends to find myself an accountability partner. I need to create a menu. I need to research a tracking system and research an exercise plan and commit to a menu, exercise, and tracking plan and an accountability partner. So each one of these things that I put in this bucket right here in this box are things that need to go on my calendar. They are things I need to do, and if I don't break them out and you have 2 sheets of goals going on and you don't put them into a calendar, what is the likelihood of them all being achieved? So that's a big part of what this system is taking this roadmap and putting it into your daily schedule. So the next thing, how will I know that I've achieved this goal? I'm going to know by the scale. It's going to come off, and my pants are going to fit better. So how am I going to feel once I've achieved this goal? Which this is that part again where you have another step of a check-in to know that this is really your goal and not somebody else's goal. How am I going to feel? I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to be more confident, and I'm going to be proud of myself. So all things that I really care about, and I saw those themes of feelings across a lot of my other areas on my goal board. So I know that this is important to me to lose that 5 pounds. So I'm going to keep going with it. And these things are now going to go into my calendar, which is your next sheet. Maddie, do you have anything to add before I go on this?
No, I think that's all great stuff, and just making sure that as you go through this process, I think the most important part of that sheet is the very last one. One is, well, what do I think it's important to know what resources are you going to need, and do you have access to those? Because if you don't have access to them, one, you're either going to need to find a way to make that happen, or else your goal is really you're just setting yourself up for failure. Yeah. And really the most important piece that I feel is, how will I feel once I have achieved this goal? Is what is the emotional relevance of this goal to me? Because at the end of the day, for me, I set goals because I feel and attach happiness to achieving my goals. And that's just me personally. But when I get to that point of when I get to check off some of these goals at the end of the year, I'm stoked. I'm pumped. And when I don't, it's not necessarily a win or a lose anymore. It's a win or you learn. And I find ways of improving and bettering the system because of my commitment to it. But it's really important to make sure that you check in on that emotional level to even just make sure that you're aligned with why you're even writing this goal down. And there's been many times where I've gone through this process and I go, what the heck am I doing? This isn't even actually relevant to my happiness or why I want this goal. So this is a good little process of going through the interrogation on a little bit more of a deeper and intense level, and just making sure that whatever it is that you're putting on your goal sheet, it's in alignment with the direction you want your life to be.
Yes, absolutely.
So, lastly, once you get through, and you can do this on as many goals as you want, you can move to the monthly.
Yep, and so on these, the monthly and weekly, when you do this, when you take this to the next step, I want you to look at both of these sheets together to see how the exercise works. So let's take that lose the 5 pounds again. So PDF 20 and PDF 21 are the ones that I'm looking at, and on PDF 20, which is my month, let's call it January, I have on there to lose that 5 pounds. Well, what do I need to do to lose that 5 pounds? I can't just put it on my month, because when January 5th comes along, or then January 20th comes along, and I haven't done all those action steps, I'm going to be standing there on January 20th and go, now I have 10 days to lose 5 pounds, and that's not a healthy way to lose 5 pounds for me. So in my first week, My goals for that week are to email those friends that I talked about, research the menus, get the tracking system down, get my exercise system down, and commit to these things. So my first week is my research. And my second week, which you can print out another uh, PDF 21, my second week of January is go time. So that Sunday before I start that second week, that's when I'm doing the meal prep. I'm getting all of my food done. I'm time blocking out when I'm exercising. I'm time blocking out when I'm calling my accountability partner or when I'm checking in or texting him or whatever it is. I say him because it's Maddie. So um, you're being really intentional and really specific about not only that it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And I have to say, it's the most important part. Because if it's not on your schedule, it's not going to happen. At least that's the way it is for me. And the pivotal time in my life when things started to happen for me in all of these areas is when I followed this process and when I said, you know what, I have all of these goals that I want to get out through the whole year or accomplish through the whole year. How is that possible? And as you start to do this and you start to map out your year, you may need to back off a few, or you may look at it and say, I can add some more stuff. I've got more time in here. Most people don't say that, which we could do a whole other one on time and your relationship with time and time wasters. But give yourself at least the time to set this out. And like I had said in the beginning, the beautiful thing about this is you may not get there by the end of the month, but you know what? You still have this to fall back on, and you know exactly where you left off. You know exactly what you didn't do, and you can pick right back up and get back right on the wagon.
Yeah, and I think you kind of brought up a good point too. Is a lot of people might, and I don't know if anybody's feeling this, but a lot of people might look at the planning process as, man, that's a lot. That's actually a lot to think out. And I go back to, you know, mediocrity requires you, if you want to live outside of mediocrity and go above and beyond and have a just completely fulfilled and intentional life, you have to do things that are out of the ordinary.
Yeah,
If you want to
absolutely.
live extraordinary lifestyles, then you have to do the extraordinary tasks. And
Mm-hmm.
so you see these people that are living these fulfilled and happy lives. And mind you, there are people who live very simple lives, but I can almost promise you that every single one of them has a system and a plan for their happiness. And it's very clear and defined in how they navigate through it. So
At the
this is
very least,
almost,
they pay attention to it.
yeah, and so it's your blueprint to kind of check in with,
Like how
because
this weekend.
yeah, I mean, there's so many different obstacles and challenges that we face on a daily basis that sometimes it makes it hard to navigate and sift through, the BS or the noise or all of the different things pulling us in different directions. And this is your map. This is your framework for making sure that when you're constantly checking in on this, you know if you're heading in the right direction or not. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know you guys can kind of see on the sheet right now. When we break out what the yearly goals are, and then you chunk it down into your monthly goals, and then all of a sudden it ends up on your weekly planner, and you can, map out what
And
that
daily.
looks. You can constantly check in and see if you're in alignment with your goals or if
Mm-hmm.
you're being distracted and pulled away from those goals. And I think that's really important to reference this tool. A lot of statistics show that you should be carrying this around with you at all times.
Absolutely.
The more you look at these goals, the more likely you are
Mm-hmm.
to achieve them. So just kind of keeping that awareness, and we call it our reticular activating system. The more you put it out there, the more your brain thinks about it, the more likely your subconscious and the world around you is going to create it for you. And you
Mm-hmm.
become more intentional about how you're doing it. So look at this sheet, and this will be kind of your weekly framework for checking in on your goals. So you can map it out on this week's goals, whether that's, um, taking your vitamins daily, or journaling, or reading a book that you want. Maybe it's calling a friend. Whatever that may be, you can write down all your weekly goals, and then each day you can set your intention. And I think that also is really important for creating
Very important.
an awareness of how you're going to move through your day. So for me, I mean, when I think about some of the things that I write down, my intention today is, you know what, I woke up a little groggy, but I want to be energetic. And so every time I look in that planner, it's a reminder for me to be energetic, and I set that intention at the beginning of the day. Or maybe, I've been a little bit on edge, and I've felt myself judging, or saying comments that I shouldn't. Maybe I need to be a little bit more calm and understanding and diplomatic. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever
I
it is
agree.
that you feel you want to let out into the universe that day, set it out there and write it down, and see it in writing, feel it in writing, and you will conceptualize and create that in more of a physical environment for yourself. And then you can really map out what your day looks like. And we live in such a digital world. I know there's probably so many people that love their Google Calendar, and I'm one of them. But I also transition a lot of my Google appointments onto this daily planner, because even though it takes a little bit more time, when I see everything in front of me on what I need to accomplish that day, ooh man, I'm so much more intentional about how I'm moving through my day, what I can fit in, what I can't fit in. I say yes much easier, or no much easier, because I know exactly what I need to do that day, because I got goals to accomplish, I got boxes to check, I'm excited about it. And then, there's a part on here where you can map out what your weekly challenge is. Maybe it's turn technology off in the evening for an hour and just be present with your space or your spouse or whatever it is that you're doing. Or maybe it's, go on a walk with some friends or call an old buddy or whatever it may be. There's weekly challenges that you might want to stretch yourself on. And it's pretty cool to see some of the stuff that when you throw out something out of the ordinary into your routine, what kind of results come from it. And then you allow yourself to map out in order what it is you want to achieve that week. You might need to have true action items that align with some of these side goals that you need to put into your time block calendar. And then, of course, we want to make sure every single day you're ending, what am I grateful for today? Because I think it's always important to end the day on positive thinking and what really went well, whether that's sunshine hitting your face, or maybe it's the rain for the drought that we're in, or the snow that we need up in the mountains, or for anybody listening, it might be something that just really resonated with you that day, something small or big. It's just getting in the practice of sifting through things and try and make sure that you're doing something different than the day before, to stretch yourself outside of just the normal routine things in your life, versus like your health, or that you have a roof over your head. And mind you, those could be things that are really important to you that day, but it might be for the conversation that you shared, or for the smile that someone gave you. And I think by creating this ideology around gratitude, what you put out, you get more of. And
Absolutely.
what you become more aware of, your world really evolves and changes into that. And then lastly, you can see here, how could I have made today better? I think it's also important to, hey, let's talk about the things we're grateful for and the wins for the day, but there's always areas where we could continue to excel, or be more mindful in, or be more intentional about, that would improve how we go through our next day. Because I'll be the first to admit, I have those days where I'm like, man, I just didn't do that well, I could have done this. So write that down and look back to that, reference it, and I can guarantee you, the more you refer back to those tools, you'll start becoming better, or eliminating those challenges or obstacles that you might see. You got anything you want to add to that, Brandy?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I would add on that, the last part of what can make today better, that becomes my intention for the next day a lot of times. So like, say that I was impatient with my kids, or I wasn't as present, or with my husband, or as purposeful, or whatever it may be. That a lot of times can come up and be your intention for the next day. So that one thing that you're really trying to focus on is, you know what, I'm going to be more patient with my kids today, or patience, or grace or energy, like you were saying, Maddie. A lot of times it tends to be the thing that we need focus on. The other thing that I want to add is the My Day, My Way over on the side. What that tool is these are the habits that you want to cultivate in your life, and the things that would make today awesome every day of the week. So that's another exercise that Maddie and I have, and again, it could be in another webinar, where you go through and you create what your most awesome day is. And it's an exercise where you can close your eyes and visualize yourself waking up, and where are you, and what are you smelling, and where are you going, and what are you wearing, and what are you doing, and all of these things that would make the most awesome day for you. And so this is a place for that most awesome day. It's also a place where, like when I had said that taking the supplements 300 days, well, if it's something that I'm doing 300 days, I need to be mindful of it on a daily basis, and it's going to be in there. It's my PM practice. I have take supplements in my PM, read the kids' books in my PM, wake up at this time, juice, whatever it may be, exercise, be active. So this is a place for you to have that daily reminder check-in. Also things that are weekly. Like on mine, I have a date night with my husband every week. I have alone time with each one of my kids once a week, or a massage, or whatever it may be. So that's on your weekly. And then at the very bottom, this is a really, really important check-in. This is on a rating from 1 to 10. How are you feeling in each area? Because this is your check-in, your GPS on what you need to do different for the next week. And let me give you an example. So if I say with my kids and significant other that I'm feeling like about a 6, and I haven't felt as present, when I look at my calendar for the next week, I may need to adjust some things. I may need to back off something that I'm doing at work, or back off something that I'm doing to incorporate more time. Because when you have this as a visual glance of what you're spending your time on, that's where you'll start to see the correlation of what's winning and what isn't winning in your life. And a big thing that I'd like you to pay attention to, if you do choose to go to a pen, paper, or you could do it on Google. I don't do digital, so I can't visualize what it would look like. But it's not just what you put on your calendar, it's where you can find those gaps. So often we say, I don't have time for that. Or how do you have the time for that? How I have the time for that is I'm very purposeful about what I give my time to, because I wholeheartedly believe it's all we have. All we have is time. All I have is the time right now I'm spending with you guys, or the time I choose to spend with Maddie, or the time I choose to spend on my business, with my kids, with my husband. So if I look at my calendar and I'm being really honest with myself and I say, wait a minute, I had about an hour this morning where I was doing nothing. I wasn't even practicing self-care and rejuvenating myself by taking a bath, or doing something that exercise, or something that gets my endorphins going, or reading a book and feeding my mind. I was just sitting around doing Facebook or whatever else, or in the evening, you know what? I didn't have time to do that. Well, after the kids went to bed, I just sat and watched TV. I challenge you to really look at your calendar and see where you have those gaps, and where you can start to have that compound effect of, we had the sheet that we sent out was the quote, "The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying small stones." It's little things each day. And then you look back after that first month, you look back after that first quarter, and then on January 31st of 2016, and you say, man, I didn't realize it was possible.
Love it.
Yeah, just have to pay attention.
You guys probably got some good information. You might be on overwhelm or overload, and that could also be to really invite you to give it some reflection, sit with it for a little bit. And the beauty is, this doesn't have to be done overnight, doesn't have to be done in one sitting. And this, for me personally, happens over the course of a couple weeks. So that's why we started in early December. So if you guys want more information, you want to chat with Brandy or myself, please connect with us. if you want to know kind of how we're going about doing our goal setting, what the accountability aspect of things looks like, we are more than happy to share any of our process or system of how we go about it. And lastly, I just challenge and encourage you to find an accountability partner, whether that's in this
Absolutely.
community or if it's a friend, you know, in close proximity, whatever it may be. Find that accountability partner, someone that is not only invested in your success and your happiness, but also someone that you feel comfortable giving full permission to hold you accountable, be authentic, call you out when you're, you know, maybe giving them a line of BS or you know that you're not doing what you should be doing. And Brandy and I have given each other more than enough permission to do that in our space, and it served us well. So the more
Absolutely.
authentic and transparent you are with yourself, and giving someone else permission to do so as well, I can almost promise you will be surprised by how many goals you achieve this year. And I hope everybody, each and every one of you, has an amazing best year ever. There's going to be some awesome things coming up with the One Life community for this next year. We're really looking to take it to that next level. So if there's ways that you think we can do that, you would like to see on our Google Hangouts or upcoming podcast, whether that's a certain speaker, certain content, a topic that you guys want to dive into, we want to feed you exactly
Absolutely.
what it is that you desire in order to have not only your best year ever, but your one life fully lived. We love you guys. Thank you for your time today. I'm going to wrap up for the sake of time, and I look forward to chatting with more people in the community. Have a rockin' rest of your week.
Woohoo. Bye, guys.